Richard Dawkins has made some statements that some are considering to be a little bit odd. He essentially defended mild pedophilia. He said, Richard Dawkins, to kind of set the stage, is the evolutionary biologist who is known for being what some consider an outspoken atheist. He thinks he is just an atheist and that the term outspoken is assigned inappropriately to many atheists who simply state their views. He told the story to the Times Magazine of England that he was sexually abused when he was a kid. He says that a teacher put his hands in his shorts and that it didn't do lasting harm. And then he said, the exact quote was, "An unidentified schoolmaster pulled me on his knee and put his hand inside my shorts when he was a child." And he said he didn't think that the abuse, which he referred to as mild touching up, did any of us any lasting harm. I guess it wasn't just to him that this was done. It was to some of his classmates as well. And his argument was, and I quote, "I'm very conscious that you can't condemn people of an earlier era by the standards of ours. Just as we don't look back at the 18th and 19th centuries and condemn people for racism in the same way that we would a modern person for racism, I look back at a few decades to my childhood and see things like caning, mild pedophilia, and I can't find it in me to condemn it by the same standards I would today." Lewis, your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't say he's defending pedophilia. I would say that it's not insane for him to think that the mild touching that happened didn't do him any lasting harm. And I don't think by him saying that, that means he's saying that it's okay that this type of thing happened. The condemning part I find a little strange. He says he's not going to condemn it by the same standards, but I guess in theory, he could still be condemning it, at least mildly, if you will.
Well, David Watt is the director of the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and he said, "Mr. Dawkins seems to think that because a crime was committed a long time ago, we should judge it in a different way. But we know that the victims of sexual abuse suffer the same effects, whether it was 50 years ago or yesterday." And this actually leads to an interesting question, which is, if Dawkins' abuse didn't inflict any lasting harm on him, why is he still talking about it so many decades later? Although maybe there is a specific reason for that, a specific answer that we don't know. But if it's just a mild childhood experience, you would think it wouldn't stand out in his mind in any way, and clearly it does. My concern is whether this is just an attempt, just an example of human beings to rationalize anything when, and there's maybe very specific and deep reasons why Richard Dawkins feels the need to say this, which is maybe he doesn't even want to admit to himself that this was a big deal. And I don't criticize him for that. In other words, that's a common thing for victims to rationalize. It wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe that's what's going on.
Maybe. I don't know. Memory also works in a strange way. I mean, there are certain things I remember that seem completely inconsequential in my life that just stick out for some reason from a long time ago. And clearly this is one of those things that would definitely stick out. But with regard to the abuse, I mean, I think it's important to realize that if someone is doing this mild touching up, I mean, that could change. They could get more aggressive. And so you really have to, you have to nip this in the bud.
And there are some victims of sexual abuse who do feel that what happened after the abuse, in other words, the aftermath, the investigations, the prosecutions, the questioning, the authorities, that sometimes adds to the trauma. But we can talk about how the aftermath adds to the trauma while not dismissing the actual incident as non-traumatic, if not for the after effects. I mean, I think that this is kind of dangerous ground, and it's important to tread pretty carefully on this. And I don't really know. I would love to have a broader conversation with Richard Dawkins about this, and maybe we will get that opportunity. Let's take a break. Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Join us on Facebook. And of course, davidpakman.com/fall13. Check out the great membership special that's going on right now.